Hey, good evening, Skyflat Stories. Hoop dit gaan goed saam met julle. Baie van julle het vir my gevra om vir een Cameron te kry saam met ons en ek het vir hom gekry saam met ons vanaand. And we're going to talk about the safety and security issues. But I think most of you guys want to hear about the incident with Bekichelli. So we are going to talk about Bekichelli, but much later on. I think we want to focus on what's really happening in Cape Town on the Cape Flats. I mean, Ian, from a different perspective, will actually share with us his opinion, his experience on the Cape Flats, what he has experienced. And it is very nice for me to know that there's somebody like Ian Audi doing the type of work that, that we need. So without any further ado, I'm going to invite him into the stream. Hey, good evening, Ian. Welcome to Cape Flat Stories. Welcome.
Hi, meneer. Thank you very much. Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. Ian, before we start with everything else, I think this week everybody saw the name Ian Cameron on Facebook, on the news, in the papers. Just more about yourself and your organization, Action Society. Let me get it right, Action Society.
Yeah, so no, first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm very grateful. I think firstly, to give a little bit of context how Action Society was born. Action Society is still a very young organization. We started about almost 2 years ago. And I think it's growing well. We started with campaigns regarding the DNA backlog, a lot of national campaigns in terms of the Convicted Offender Amendment Bill. And I want to give context to that for really, people on the ground to understand how serious the crime issue is. And I mean, we focus quite a bit on gender-based violence, but let's unpack it a bit as an introduction. I think firstly, if we consider something like the DNA bill, the DNA backlog, last year we had 300,000 cases backlog. That means you have an average of about 4 pieces of evidence that needs to be processed. Now, if you consider that, it means that you've got 1.2 million pieces of evidence that the police were behind on. So they have decreased that a bit. It's about 50,000 now. But nevertheless, the point I'm trying to make, and I always, turn it into a real life story for people to understand how serious it is. And this time, I want to share the story of Chantal Mokoena. Chantal Mokoena was raped and murdered in Rocklands, not Rocklands in Cape Town this time, Rocklands in PE, and she was dumped in a pit toilet, and her body was left there, and it took 2 years to process the DNA evidence to link the suspect or the accused to the actual scene. And once again, that means that man could spend another 2 years doing what he does, and and that makes me bleak, to say the least. I'm trying to be polite. So that's kind of the background and the frustration. Where did the model come from that we're working on and that we've piloted in the Cape Flats? Is because of a lady called Sipokazi Boy. Now, interesting, Sipokazi wasn't actually killed in the Cape Flats. She was actually killed in Mbekweni, close to Paul. And it happened during the time when we were talking about this model. And this model comes from the idea that we want to see how we can oversee prosecution, 1. 2, not only oversee it, but assist with anything or any lack of resource or capacity in the prosecution process. But then we need to go back to the investigation as well. Police in the Cape Flats, and I'm going to use Mitchells Plain as an example. Let's use Lentegeur as an example. Some of those detectives have more than 300 dockets on their table. People would have heard me say that to Taylor earlier this week. And it's physically impossible. Now, if you speak to any good detective, they would tell you they can handle 20, maybe 30 cases. But 300 cases, it's physically impossible to do good police work with that. So they're just absolutely flooded. And there are still amazing people wearing the uniform. But unfortunately, they are resourced so badly, and they don't have the leadership. So our model complements that investigative effort. We assist with that. We support these members. And then we also assist the victims. So we get mandated by the victims. and or their families if the victim didn't survive. And we then not only assist with the investigation if needed, but we also reach out to the prosecutors to make sure that the whole criminal justice cycle can really be complemented and assisted as far as possible to make sure that there's justice. In South Africa, we have a less than a 5% successful conviction rate for sexual offences.
Mhm. And what I also want to say quickly, I just want to bring in there, like you mentioned, the SAPS is understaffed. That is the first thing that we need to look at. Understaffed, and they are overworked. And I mean, also we have to be honest. Like I always mention it on this platform, we also have the corruption factor there as well. Not all of them, but some of them. And I think that plays a very important part. We To be honest with you, I think the whole justice system needs a um, to be to have a makeover. We have a justice system that actually fails us in prison. We have a justice system that fails us when they go to the courts, when they have to actually, stand on trial. Some of the guys get, if you have money and you have a good lawyer and you're guilty, you will still get away. It's things like that that is actually causing people to lose faith in the system. I mean, yourself
Absolutely.
obviously know about the guns that were sold to the gangsters on the Cape Flats, what that is doing to the people living in fear.
Yeah.
So, just from your point of view, yes, we mustn't give too much. I feel personally we mustn't give too much attention to Charlie. His time is up. But what is the values of a good police minister? Because that is what we need now. Like we did it yesterday. We are running at a pace where we are losing people because of a justice system that is failing us.
Yeah, yeah. So I think you're 100% right. I think we need to use or exhaust all the different remedies that we have to our disposal, and we have to take on people like Tele first of all. And the reason I say that is because he's a bully. I
Mhm.
think he walks over people. He's got a reputation in the police as well. Police members, the majority of them, absolutely despise him because he humiliates them, he embarrasses them, and he's destroyed many career cops'
Mhm.
careers. Okay, back to ground level stuff. The book, I actually just pulled it out here from my table. This book called Give Us More Guns from
Yeah.
Mark Shaw
Mhm.
is probably the most accurate overview of the gun issue on the Cape Flats. Now, the police, Chris Prinsloo's whole case, everyone knows the name. Chris facilitated the sale of over 9,000 firearms, police firearms, to the
Mhm.
gangs in the Cape Flats. And if you go look at the South African police service as a whole, in the last probably 12 to 14 years, they've lost about 26,000 firearms. So 26,000 firearms nationally
Mhm.
that are most likely in the hands of criminals. The recovery rates on those guns are very, very low.
Mhm.
So to us, it's a bit of a two-prong approach. On the one side, we say let's keep them accountable. We need to go to court. We need to take them on, and etc. etc. But at the same rate, we've started building this model where if they fail in the investigation, then we do it ourselves, and if they
Mhm.
should fail in the prosecution, then we're going to do that ourselves as well. We've actually gone so far that we now have our own forensic lab or
Wow.
lab capacity too.
Wow.
So, say for example, something, just humor me for a bit. Say, for example, we've got a victim that was severely physically abused. Let's say it's a domestic violence case, a female victim that's been severely beaten, etc. Then our investigators can do the photographs of the bruising, all of those different types of things. And what we then also do is we assist the victim when you go to court to make sure they understand the process, because court can be a very intimidating place. It's a very
Mhm.
intimidating process to some, especially a victim. And we then also assist them, say for example, you're in court and you know that the accused is going to come in, you're going to have to see the person that really hurt you, and we assist them to make that ride just a little bit smoother, just to help them to be a bit calmer, that they know what to expect, and we then teach them that. So I think to us, to answer you shortly, we're trying to build an alternative for when things don't work out the way they should. In terms of the corruption issue, it's a very difficult task to sort out on ground level. It's not that simple, and I don't have the perfect answer for it. And the reason is that we don't have specialized units or decent specialized units in the police anymore. And that's something we need to really fight for. Because, my friend, I'm telling you that if we don't do that, the murder rate will increase. We will see more bloodshed. We have to have some kind of specialized capacity. And I'm going to say it bluntly. The kingpins that stand at the head of these criminal organizations need to be removed from society. It's that simple. If that doesn't happen, I promise you, more innocent people will lose their lives. It's as simple as that.
Yes. And you've just touched on something there now, also on not having the resources. I think that is, like you say, there's people sitting, detectives sitting with, as you mentioned, with 300 dockets on their table. I know some of these guys are under a lot of pressure, a lot of stress. And I mean, after a point, you actually give up and you don't worry to investigate anymore. And the docket just gets more and more. What you guys are doing is supposed to be the job of the government, not of civilians, but it has pushed us to that far. I mean, if you look at us now, many years ago, we didn't have neighborhood watches. There maybe were one or two, but we didn't have neighborhood watches. We didn't have CPF. That was a small factor. But now all of us needs to come out and we all need to be part of protecting our communities. That is how far it is currently. And I think government, what I've seen this week as well, and maybe you can just enlighten us on that as well, they have politicized this whole thing of you standing up against Bekele, which is not right. I feel you stood up because you wanted. We all see what you saw on a daily basis, and I think you wanted to bring out the point. And he said to himself, but he fought for our rights and stuff. But today, many years later, it wasn't better. It wasn't good in the old days, but we had sort of, there wasn't crime. I grew up on the Cape Flats. There was maybe 1 or 2 murders every 4 months. Now you have murders every day. Many of these cases are never investigated. It's like children die. There's no resources. 10 years later, the murderer is still walking free out there. I think it's things like this that is actually giving people that type of losing faith and also giving up. I mean, a lot of our youngsters on the Cape Flats, and this is the new thing I picked up. Once they're done studying, they rather go overseas. We're losing a lot of our people overseas, and I think that's also something that people are afraid of. Living here is dangerous. I mean, during load shedding, there was an incident last week where a lady were raped on the Cape Flats because of load shedding. It happened to her, and there's more cases like that. I think just to come back to you on politics in here, but I think the only way that we can remove this lifeless, lawless government is to vote him out, because it's 30 years later and things are very more difficult as what it used to be.
Yes. Well, firstly, I want to commend you on something, and this is a very important message that I want to share, and that is that I've been doing this for the past 12 years, more or less, 11, 12 years. And I can tell you that I used to mainly work with rural safety, farm attacks, farm murders, etc. That was my focus for about 7 years, and I obviously learned a lot from that. And I want to commend you on something as the Cape Flats, and it's important for the community to hear it. And that is that I've hardly worked in such a welcoming and inspiring community. And there's an important reason why I say that despite the challenges, whenever I go to the Cape Flats, especially the areas like, for example, Mitchell's Plain, Manenberg, Hanover Park, Grassy, let's just say the Cape Flats, despite the challenges, for some or other reason, and sometimes I'm not sure if it's a faith thing, because I mean it's a lot of different religions in the area, or people are actually, it's actually a very diverse community, and every time I meet with people, they always have something to be optimistic about. And then I tell my wife, I say to geez, I don't know how some of these people stay optimistic despite the challenges they face. And I think that is why people in the Cape Flats will survive in the end. And I know a lot of bad things are still going to happen. Unfortunately, that's the reality we have. But firstly, I think women in the Cape Flats are incredibly brave. From what I've seen with the neighborhood watches and the way that they patrol at night, etc., it is incredibly inspiring. I know of many places in the country where women don't even want their husbands to go out at night because then they are left home alone. Well, not in the Cape Flats. The women in the Cape Flats patrol on their own, and that always just astounds me. So I want to congratulate the community on that. In terms of what the neighborhood watches and the role they play, look, I agree it is a job of the government, but I think the problem that we have, and this is a previous regime problem and it's a current regime problem, is that a culture of government dependence was nurtured and was built up. So, everyone expected, okay, government will make sure that we have a hospital. Government will make sure that I have a job. Government will make sure that I'm safe and that the police works. And those functions must work. But it's crucial that we utilize all the different remedies to our disposal to make ourselves safe. We need to take responsibility for that. And I want to single out someone tonight, and she might frown at me for doing it, but Glenda Arendse in Lentegeur. That lady is just, she's a massive inspiration to me. So every time I get there and I have coffee with them, I'm going there again this week. It just always astounds me how, despite challenges in terms of resources, etc., Glenda always has a reason to smile, always has a reason to patrol, and despite the lack of resources in the police station, they do not stop doing what they do.
And like you mentioned now, that there is something that I always notice is always the ladies that's out there in their jackets patrolling, and you know what, afraid of nobody, afraid of nothing. And I commend our ladies for that. That is something I do agree with you. I just want to come back to something quickly. On we spoke about SAPS now, but now we also need to speak about law enforcement. We also need to speak about Metro Police. I think at the moment their powers is a bit limited. If I'm correct, there's only certain things they can do. I think law enforcement, Metro Police can't operate without SAPS, and I think that is where the struggle starts. Is that there isn't enough vans, there isn't enough when it comes to SAPS, there isn't enough men and women to assist with operations. How do you feel? How can we win this? Because I spoke to the mayor a couple of weeks back, and he said that the best thing for provinces would be if SAPS becomes, independent. Like for instance, if the government of the Western Capes, runs or looks after SAPS, that might be an option. What is your take on it? Is that something, because we might still sit, with the ANC for the next couple of years, and I don't want to make it a political thing, but my problem is we have people in our present national government that's not doing their job. We know what's happening. What is your take on that? How can we, make this thing work, in the next couple of months?
Yeah, so without making it a party political discussion, that could be a debate for another day, but unfortunately we have to mention some of the politics. Let me give you a background of SAPS over the last 20 years before I answer the question, and then I'll motivate why I say that. Let's go back to 2003. Jackie Celebi was the national commissioner. He was a political appointment. He had no police experience whatsoever, and he disbanded all the specialized units in the police, the majority of them. So suddenly, specialized and organized crime, a lot of it had to be combated from ground level, from station level. Now you can imagine, and this is a massive problem in the Cape Flats because of many of the gangs, that the very cop that needs to investigate a specific gang member or a crime of some sort is a neighbor of one of those members, or they know where the children go to school or where the wife works. And so I'm simplifying it, but you know what I mean. The point is, intimidation is super easy. And as a constable getting 7,000 or 8,000 rand a month, an entry-level police member, it becomes very challenging to put your life and your family's life at risk whilst you don't get protection from government, you don't have good leadership and resources, etc. Okay, so that's the specialized unit side. So place that on the shelf for now. The next national commissioner that comes in is a guy called Lucky Mkonazi. He's a very good guy. He's still in the police. He was national commissioner for a few months. Couldn't really do much. He actually just kept the seat warm and then he moved on. He's currently the provincial commissioner in KZN. He's a career cop, and in my opinion, he's a good guy. Wow. After him, we get Bheki Cele. Bheki Cele destroyed parts of the police. Okay, this guy came in, he passed thousands of people, he pushed them through police colleges, they failed 1, 2, even 3 remedials, and they still got their uniforms. At that stage, 47% of cops in the Eastern Cape weren't competent to carry their firearms. Okay, yet they were carrying firearms. I think it was around 20% in the Western Cape weren't competent, not because they couldn't necessarily shoot, but they didn't have an opportunity to go for their competency shoot. So that's another example. So Cele, big issue there. Then we got Ria Pieja. Ria Pieja gave herself a 10-year service medal after she hadn't even served for 2 years. She gave herself a service medal for the FIFA World Cup, hadn't served during the FIFA World Cup, and so the list goes on. Since then, we've lost 65,000, actually more, reservist police members. We haven't trained more either. So it's a massive chunk out of our operational capacity that there is. So if someone wants to come and argue with me, like Taylor did on Tuesday, saying that they are the only, and this is why I got a bit angry when he said that he is the only body that's constitutionally mandated to protect people. And that's what I said to him. I said to him, you want the monopoly on community safety, but you are failing in your own constitutional mandate. You are failing the people. So don't come here with a political discussion, discrediting provincial government or local government. And I'm not saying local or provincial government are perfect. No government is perfect. That's right. You've got no right to come and criticize them while you are literally a disgrace in your position. I mean, there is no improvement in the South African police service for the past 15 years. Nothing. It is a disgrace, and people are dying at alarming rates. Okay, so that aside, now let's talk about the devolution idea. Why am I a supporter of it? I'm a supporter of it because it simply means that we can make sure that resources are allocated properly. What happens at the moment, firstly, I think the police are ill-resourced because I think national government wants to get a stab in at provincial government. They're politicking and they deliberately ill-resource the police here. And a lot of people on ground level think that provincial government and, for example, let's say City of Cape Town are responsible for a national government function, which is the South African Police Service. And that's not true. So what happens with the money? Me and you pay our tax. That tax money goes to National Treasury, and they decide how that money is allocated. I'm simplifying the process, but that's more or less it. What we're saying is that keep that money inside the province, and let's make sure that it's allocated properly. Because at the moment, a lot of the money that we are spending here on tax is spent in Limpopo and in Free State and in the Northern Cape, etc., whilst people here are dying at the rates that they are. Right. I mean, let's take Gugulethu as an example, okay? The UN prescribed average for police is 300 people per police member. That's meant to be the average. Gugulethu is 642 people per police member. Grassy Park, a short while ago, was just over 900 people per police member. It's physically impossible to police that kind of thing. So the devolution idea would simply mean that resources could be allocated better, and I am convinced that general management and management of criminality inside the South African Police Service would be better. And the reason for that is we can compare the two already. The levels of corruption in local traffic police and provincial police in the Western Cape is far lower than what it is in South African Police Service. Again, not perfect, but it's definitely better.
Yeah, and I like what you've actually challenged Bheki to walk with the community, in the evening. And I don't know if he did that. I think that is one of the things that people want to see. We're living in a time where people want to see the minister getting his hands dirty. patrolling, putting people in place. Also over the last couple of months, years, if you follow the story of Nia, he passed away, he was killed. If you follow the politics also in SEPS, there's also a lot of politics happening in SEPS
Yeah.
as well. I think one of the things that astound me still up till this day, they knew Kenya was investigating big cases and they took away his protection from him. It's almost like they've set him up for failure. And when the trial started, Becky Chelly was here. He was one of the guys, gave the orders to catch. But I think they do these things only for a few days or for a few minutes. Even when a child gets killed on the Cape Flats, he was in Heideveld the other day for a few minutes. He comes here and he makes promises, but the promises never execute.
No,
And I think that is what makes us, to be honest with you, cross, because we're not really seeing any change in our system.
But this is the thing, and this is what makes me angry about it. So let me give you an example. I mentioned Sipakazi Boy the other day. Excuse me again. That case bugs me. I don't know. It haunts me. And about a week ago, I visited where she was murdered. So her story, very shortly, and I'm not going to do all the graphics. Her arms and legs were cut off. Her breasts were cut off. She was set alight in a trolley bin, and she was set on fire about 100 meters from the perpetrator's house. Okay. So last week we visited the scene. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
There we go. Sorry, I think the connection just. So Kaylin and I, my one colleague, we visited the scene with Sipakazi's sister. All right, and while I stood there, you would have heard it with the Tele discussion. There was a 3-year-old boy defecating about 10 meters from us. He doesn't have any water, sanitation, nothing. So okay, that's issue number one. 20 meters from there is a dead dog carcass covered in flies lying there. And you walk through the litter, and there are a few drug addicts literally going through it's like sewage and litter and everything lying around there. And then I think to myself, I see someone like Becky Cele and even the president attending funerals. Why aren't they there being firstly proactive, going out with a decent unit of cops and going to raid a place? That's what I want to see. And if he's too old for that, then resign. Then we want someone else. But I want a minister that knows what the blood of a child smells like on a murder scene and how it haunts that community. I want him to know what it smells like after a body is discovered 10 days later because he didn't do his job. That's what I want to see. So I'm sorry I'm getting worked up about it. I'm tired. I'm sick of always seeing them attend funerals when there's so many proactive things they could do. Let me tell you, in a place like Indonesia, okay, even Colombia at the moment, parts of Mexico, they cut murder rates in half in some of those regions by being aggressive towards crime. I'm talking big cop operations. You raid building after building after building, and you make criminals run. You chase them. No matter who the gangster is, no matter how many guns he has, you chase him to the end of the earth, but you do not stop. He either is exhausted or he doesn't get up again. And it's as simple as that. They need to declare war on violent crime in South Africa because we're pussyfooting around it. And if we look inside the South African Police Service, their own internal politics is an absolute mess. I mean, now General Vuma is making accusations against Tele, but Vuma is not clean either. Setole is out because he, wow, it's erger as days of our lives.
It's true, but that is the truth. That's the things happening in the structures that are supposed to protect us. You also have this thing where you have neighborhood watches, and I mean you might have picked this up, where SAPs make up certain individuals, and then on the other hand, certain individuals are with SAPs, and the other are with law enforcement. We're fighting the same battles here, and I think we need to look at how can we fix the community, because at the end of the day, politics is actually breaking up people. Politics is actually killing us. It is not us much that we want to do good, but we don't have the system to support us. That brings me to the following, Ian. you guys are very much active with gender-based violence. That is one of our biggest topics that we've been covering for the last 3, 4 years. And what I want to just ask you, gender-based violence is something obviously that happens in the house. We don't speak about it. It's some of these things are intergenerational things that has been going on for years. Aside from the law being there, being strict, what is the other measurements that we can put in place? How can we fix this thing of gender-based violence? Because many years ago, or a few years ago, it didn't have a name. It was abuse. It was hitting my wife, hitting our children, doing this and that. Now it
Yes.
has a name, gender-based violence. But I also feel we need to have programs in place where it needs to, be taught in school, at church, at the mosque, and
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. I think it's a very, very important question. Firstly, I think we need to look at the moral fiber. What's going on in our hearts? I think that's crucial. I often hear, and I've unfortunately heard it in the Cape Flats quite a bit, where a woman would have been beaten by a man, and I'd hear a comment from someone saying, "Yeah, but she asked for it. Sy wou nie geluister het nie." So, jy weet. Or I hear the other day a lady in a discussion. I was standing there with 2 or 3 ladies close to one of the neighborhood watches, and I heard a lady telling the other one, "Ja, maar my man het my gegooi met 'n skoen en wat in my huis gebeur in my huis." That is not okay. That is not okay. And if firstly, if you're a man and you raise your hand for a woman, you're a coward. It's as simple as that. And we need to be very outspoken about that. And if we know of that happening, we need to do everything we can, not to only support the victim, but to take on that man. And we need to make sure that he's brought to book. We need to assist with a protection order. And now people are going to laugh because they say, but a protection order doesn't help. But that's where we can possibly come in, because we try and assist with that. We do our best to really help people. Just this week, Monday, Tuesday, we were in court with protection orders again. The one case is actually a case of an elderly lady that's often beaten by one of her children, who is part of a gang. And she is terrified of him. And he beats her to pulp. And we're now helping her to stay safe. So it's crucial that we're outspoken about that. And then I also think in schools, we need to speak about this much more. So we tested a bit of a project on Youth Day. Again, not to do a whole historical day about it. The point is we need to look forward. We've got a crisis in our youth. And there's so many promising individuals in the Cape Flats that I've come across and that I've had contact with, that we need to develop those people, give them opportunities as far as we possibly can. I know it's difficult. So Mark Fish and I are pretty good friends. And you remember him from the football days. And we tested a bit of a soccer day in Lentegeur with the neighborhood watch, actually. And I think that's where we can possibly influence the young minds of young men again, young boys again, because this is another thing that I feel strongly about. We've got so many women days, and no offense, ladies that are listening, I don't mean this in a bad way. We've got so many women's days. We've got so many things, and I'm outspoken about gender-based violence towards women and children, etc. But men are often so discouraged in the current status quo because men aren't allowed to be men. When you are unashamedly male, then that's frowned upon because of all the other different things that are going on in the world. And it really makes it challenging for men to be good fathers because they are always questioned. And there's a whole list of things. So the point I'm trying to make is I think we really need to see how we can assist young boys to see how they can be men. How can they grow up with integrity? And that's something Mark Fish has shown me, the influence that he has on these young boys when they do these football clinics, etc. It really does make a big difference. Just to show that young man he can be a gentleman. Yes, going is going to get tough, but he can have integrity. And I think if we can do that mind shift, it really must make an impact. But again, I'm trying to summarize everything. Each of these things is something we can discuss for an hour each or longer. But I'm just trying to say that we need to invest in the young men on the ground.
Yeah. And that is true. You will have noticed on the Cape Flats that there is something that we need to work on. We need to take our young people. We need to celebrate them. I think more of us needs to do this because if we don't do it, the gangsters does it. The gangsters get hold of these boys. And I actually saw you guys were in it was Youth Day when you guys were in Lentegeur. So I drove past you and I saw you guys there doing the amazing work. So thank you so much, Ian. Ian, you don't have to do this, but you have a heart for our people. So that is what I appreciate. That is what I love about your organization. Coming out to the Cape Flats, up to my people and making a difference. I've got two more questions for you and then we're done. But the one question I want to ask you will be the last serious question. The question that I want to ask you, if we should select a new minister of police, who do you think is that we can take tomorrow and put him in the position tomorrow? Who do you think who is that person that has proved himself that can do the job? Because we had enough. I mean, Becchicelli, I think he's got a kindergarten qualification where he can, you know, teach children. So that is the sad reality. But I want to ask you, what qualifications, what experience, not corrupt, somebody that will fix because SAPS needs to be fixed all over, Eastern Cape, Western Cape, wherever. So we need somebody in that can fix this. Is there any candidate or candidates that you would recommend?
It's if from an home country. So it's a challenging question. So how I would approach it is I would really it's the same recommendation that what I made with the previous national commissioner or the new national commissioner's appointment. I said they should have appointed an entire external panel of experts that could assist with identifying and interviewing the right person. But that being said, I think it's absolutely crucial that it's someone that just at least understands policing and has been involved, understands ground level frustrations of members. I mean, since Tuesday, I've visited numbers of police stations since this whole Tele thing happened. I've been inundated with calls of cops saying, please just come and see us. We want to meet you. We're really struggling to do our jobs. We feel bad with the leadership, etc. And I get there and I'm shocked to see that some of the police stations don't even have toilet seats for their people to sit on. Come on, man. That's a basic form of dignity. Just make sure someone has a clean toilet to use, or toilet paper, something so basic, and that's something government can definitely afford. I mean, when I was there on Tuesday in Gugulethu, Tele gets there with 6 cars accompanying, 6 cars, man. And I promise you tonight, there will be shooting in Manenberg or Hanover Park. It's almost guaranteed. Yeah. None of those 6 cars will be there. None of those cops that carried me out will be there. None of the armored vehicles will be there. So yeah, it's difficult. They'll have to get a panel and then look at it. The challenge that we have is that many of the very experienced people that there are have already retired, and many of them have actually retired after having already left the police. So they left the police, still did some private sector work, and then they retired. So I think it must be a very, very decent or a very detailed process, appointment process. And then hopefully they can identify the right character. But it's not going to be an easy task. And the other thing, sorry, I have to mention, I think the police needs to be restructured from the top down. We can't expect ground level things to be better when the snake's head isn't chopped off. And at the moment, it really is a snake's head scenario. The police is rotten at the top. We've got far too many generals. We've got far too many brigadiers. It's literally, or let's rather say figuratively, a very fat structure. It's an overweight leadership structure. We've got way too many people in senior ranks that aren't experienced members, but rather connected political elite. And if that doesn't change, we can't influence ground level. So it's going to take a while. The last thing I must mention is union involvement inside the police has really also done a lot of damage because it slowed down a lot of processes. It made it very difficult to instill good discipline in the police. So unfortunately, unions have also, made the police quite a political environment to try and survive in.
Yes. Ian, you are very much familiar on gender-based violence, so you know the process, you know what triggers people. When you were removed forcefully on Tuesday, the way they handled you, the manhandled you, that is abuse. That is the guys that is supposed to protect you, according to the constitution. How did that play out for you? Because personally, the way I mean, your jacket was torn apart. You look like you had a few knocks on your face. I don't know if I saw it wrong, but how did you feel? Because that to me was what many of our people are going through when they go and report cases at the police station,
Mm, mm.
and that happens. I mean, you can
And
talk about it.
yeah, and this is the thing. This is why it's a principal matter to me, and this is the reason why we open the cases. It's not. This mustn't be made an Ian Cameron Becky Taylor
Mm-mm,
thing. It mustn't
mm-mm,
be made an Action Society Becky Taylor thing. No, no, no. This is about a dangerous precedent that was set that if you challenge
mm-mm,
authority and take them on with facts, then you are silenced by violent thugs in uniform because that's what
mm-mm.
those members were. They were thugs.
Yeah,
They were busy with thuggery. No one gave an order to remove me, first of all. Second of all, there was no reason to remove me. That's assault. That's common
yeah,
assault, plain and simple. That's why we opened the cases. And I think, look, in terms of reputation damage, I think they did more damage to themselves, and the minister did more damage to his own reputation than to mine. But again, it's a principal matter, and this is the sad reality. The fact of the matter is, am reasonably often in the media and so on and so forth.
mm-mm,
I promise you that if it was someone that wasn't often in the media, or maybe someone that isn't as involved in community policing and didn't take him on with stats, etc., no one really would have followed it up because it's the
mm.
norm. It's kind of normal for
That's right.
these things to happen, and we just pull up
Mm-mm,
our shoulders and yeah, it's the police not
mm-mm.
really doing what they're meant to do.
Yeah,
And that's not the case. But what I can tell you is that the support towards me from professional cops from all over the country is massive. The
yeah.
amount of calls I got from police members from townships to rich
Mm-mm,
areas, you
mm-mm,
name it, they
mm-mm,
are in support. So I do think there is a discussion inside SAPS as well regarding this. And I think we need to keep pushing, man. I think there's so much we need to keep doing. We need to campaign, we need to protest, we need to
mm-mm.
have these discussions.
That's right.
And I think the most important part to me is we need to be involved in neighborhood watch structures and others. And I know it's tiring. I know
Mm.
it takes money, and we all
Yeah.
under pressure in South Africa even more at the moment with that. I know that. But the point is, if we're not going to get more involved, things are going to get worse far
Mm-mm,
quicker. And I think
mm-mm,
we can actually prevent it. Well, in terms of the manhandling, on a lighter note, I must tell
mm-mm.
you, I don't think my elbows have ever touched each other behind my back, but that day they did. I mean, I'm not a small guy, but there were a few moments where my feet were off the ground, so it was quite
Yeah.
remarkable. I said to my wife, "Het gevoel of ek weer lyn staan gespring het soos op hoërskool." Um, so it was so I guess we have to see the lighter side of it as well later. But it's easy to joke about it now. It's a very
Mm.
serious matter, and I think it speaks for the South African police service as a whole. And unfortunately, it's become a reality all across South Africa that these horrible things happen. And that it goes away unseen because there is no media or there is no one to film it, etc.
Yeah.
So yeah, we need to take on these dictators.
Mm-mm. Ian, also there's a song, I don't know if you heard about the song on a lighter note, that I think is Kifness. He actually came out with the song 2 days ago. What do you think about the song?
I enjoyed it very much. I think it did very well. Look,
Mm-mm,
I've watched it a few times. I
mm-mm,
received it from all over. People were sending it to me the whole time. And between the Kifness song and the Nando's ad, We all had a good laugh about it. And again, I think that's something positive about South Africans as well. We always find a reason to joke about something. And then on top of that, I think the on a serious note about the song, it actually reached more people. The whole story reached more people, and it reached a different crowd, which is great because I think it pulls in people that wouldn't traditionally get involved in this stuff. But many South Africans are saying we've reached a tipping point. We need to keep pushing. I mean, Bheki Cele was trending for about 4 days in a row on Twitter. And today his front page, Mail and Guardian, Sunday Times is full of Bheki Cele today. Rapport is full of Bheki. So all the national Sunday papers are all covered with Cele. So the pressure is definitely on. We need to keep going. And one thing's for sure, we definitely shouldn't lose hope. The other night I was in Rocklands in Cape Town at a meeting, a neighborhood watch meeting, and we just quickly had a chat. I had to share our model with them, and the CPF was there and everything. And I said to my wife when I got home later that night, I said, something that stands out to me in that community is that some of the people have like hectic struggles in life. They really have a lot of challenges financially, etc. Things are tough. But what amazed me was the way of being resilient. They just keep going. They just keep on keeping on, And when I was speaking to some of them afterwards, they said, well, we don't have anywhere else to go. We can't move. This is what we have. So we have to make it work. And forgive me, I'm not saying this as I don't want to get into a Palestine-Israel discussion now, but I want to use an example. So from a person, Golda Meir, when she was still the prime minister or the leader of Israel. And I read this the other day, and I don't like the politics of either or, but she said a very important thing. And this is a quote that we should implement in communities on ground level, especially where they have a lot of violent crime. And she said the following. People kept on asking her, how are we going to survive? And she kept on saying those years, don't worry, we have a secret weapon. We have a secret weapon. And for years on end, people would ask, how are we going to survive? We've got so many challenges. She said, don't worry, we have a secret weapon. And years later, someone asked her, but what is the secret weapon? And everyone thought, she was going to say something about the military or the police or something like that. And her answer was one line. She said, we have no other alternative. And that is the scenario that most of us have in South Africa. We have no other alternative. So again, take the person and the politics out of it. The point is just we have no other alternative. So we have to make this work.
That's right. And I love how you ended. We have no alternative. The only thing for us now is to fight back together as a community. Ian, what can people expect from your organization? I know you're very busy. Some people have asked, how can they get in contact with the organization? I know your website is Excellent Society. Any projects that people can get involved with? Because I think this is also a good thing that what happened this week. Now more people want to be part of your organization and know how can they help in the community.
Yes, so obviously our predominant focus will stay assisting victims of gender-based violence. This week will be in Manenberg, Lentegeur, Gugulethu, Kalicha, and so on. There's a whole list of places we're going. I've been contacted to go to Delft as well. I'll be getting the times and everything tomorrow, and then I know there are one or two other places too, but we'll try and fit everything in. We're a small organization, so we need to be careful that we don't fill it up too quickly. And I don't want to make unrealistic promises to people. The thing is, remember, we're piloting this project, or we piloted it in the Cape Flats, and it seems to be working. We've got numerous, or a whole big list of active cases at the moment, and we are gaining success. We've made a few good arrests as well, so it is working. I think for future reference, if someone would like to make contact with us, they can always email me. My email address is Ian, IAN, at actionsociety.co.za, or they can reach us through the website. I mean, they can just go on the website, they'll see the Contact Us tab, and it'll come straight through to whoever it's addressed to. So if they want to get in contact with me, our team will send it to me, and we can chat. So I think three things that we'll be focusing on. Firstly, again, the GBV cases. Secondly, is to really keep on motivating community safety structures, the existing one. And if we can assist them with some basic training, we'll do that too. We've really encouraged people to let us know. My background is community policing, so I can come and assist with some basics. What can they do? What can't they do? The different scenarios, etc. And on top of that, we will continue with our campaign. We will unashamedly speak out against unethical leadership that we're seeing at the moment from the police minister and others, and we will keep on keeping on.
Ian, thank you so much for what you're doing. I know it's not easy. I know, what you guys are a non-profitable company, so you guys are doing whatever you can with what you have. So thank you so much, Ian. And also, people will be in contact with you. Myself and you will obviously meet later in the week. I'm very much impressed with this guy Ian that works on the Cape Flats, that is looking after our people and teaching them, how to look after themselves. So from my side, from Cape Flats Stories, thank you so much, and I'll have you back in the studio soon again. Any last words?
No, just thank you very much, and yeah, it's awesome to be chatting with you guys. And I'm so happy that we get to pilot our project there, because it's been such
Yeah.
an inspiring journey already. And I think once we start moving it out to the rest of the country, which should be within the next 6 months, I think the lessons that we've learned and the inspirations that we've received from the Cape Flats will really carry us in future years to come.
Yeah, and I think at the moment, just end off, the Cape Flats is at the stage where it's probably at its worst now, and there's such a lot to learn. And although what you said, our people are still very much optimistic, still very much positive that things will change. I mean, there's a lot of people are resilient, living on the Cape Flats. So I think when you walk away from the Cape Flats, or when you work on here, you gain a lot of knowledge, and I have over the years experienced that. So well done, and thank you so much, Ian, and all the best. I'll chat to you soon again.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, cheers. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Ian Cameron from Action Society. His website is on here. You guys can contact him. You can send him an email, Ian at actionsociety.co.za. That's the website. Guys, I've said this before. The only way how we're going to fix the Cape Flats in Cape Town, South Africa, is when we collaborate, irrespective of our religion, irrespective of our color, or where we live. We are facing the same issues everywhere. And for that reason, we need to join organizations like Action Society and other organizations out there, and we need to grow it. It's our right to live free. It's our right to go to the shop to go buy a bread. Many of our people can't go to the shops, because the gangsters are shooting. Many of our people can't go out, can't go work because of being kept hostage. But it's our right to be free. And if government is not going to give it to us, then we need to find alternatives and energy and sort of energy that energy into positive things, joining organizations like Action Society. Guys, thank you so much, and thank you for tuning in. Please do share this live broadcast. Please do share it so that we can get more people to watch it and more people to join the organization. The more people we are fighting against the corrupt minister, and I'm saying it online. You can say what you want. You can call me whatever party I belong to. It's fine. But our minister has done nothing the last few years. He can't even run. He can't even, I can see a debate reg uitvoer. He gets upset, and then he scowls at people, and then he calls people names, and then he make it about him, saying that, yeah, my mother was a kitchen girl and my father was called a, there's nothing to do with it. My father was also at one stage called or whatnot, but we are past that. We're not at name calling anymore. We need to find solutions. How do we find solutions? If you want to fix the Cape Flats, we need to work together. We need to sit down, irrespective of what, like I said, party you belong to, what religion you belong to. We need to sit down and find possible solutions. And that's the only way how we're going to fix the Cape Flats, Cape Town, and the rest of South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. As a bit laat, I must now go home. Have a lovely evening and God bless.